My father vanished like a ghost when I was 6, leaving only a faded Polaroid and a hole in my heart that never quite healed. 20 years later, his second wife, a stranger with desperate eyes, hunted me down in a grimy diner to drop a bombshell that flipped my world upside down. I was wiping down tables at Joey's Diner, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like regret and the jukebox only plays heartbreak anthems. It was a slow Tuesday, the kind where you count ceiling tiles to stay sane. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom sleek blazer, sharp heels, and a face that screamed she hadn't slept in days. She scanned the room, her eyes locking on me like I was the last piece of a puzzle she'd been solving her whole life. "Are you Ellie Carter?" she asked, her voice low but steady, like she was afraid I'd bolt. I froze, rag in hand, my name sounding foreign in her mouth. "Depends. Who's asking?" She slid into a booth, motioning for me to sit. "I'm Laura Grayson, your father's wife." The words hit like a sucker punch. My father. The man who'd walked out on me and Mom without a backward glance, leaving us to scrape by in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and dreams that never quite took flight. I hadn't heard his name in years. Hadn't wanted to. I sat down, not because I wanted to, but because my legs felt like they might give out. "I don't have a father," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "What do you want?" Laura's hands trembled as she pulled an envelope from her purse, its edges worn like it had been carried for miles. "He's dying. Ellie. Cancer. He doesn't have long, and he needs to see you." I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty diner. "Needs to see me after 20 years of silence, lady. You've got the wrong girl." But Laura didn't flinch. Her eyes, tired and red-rimmed, held a weight I couldn't ignore. "He's not the man you think he is. He made mistakes, terrible ones, but he's been trying to make things right. Please, just hear me out." I should have walked away. Should have told her to take her sob story and her envelope and leave me to my quiet, predictable life. But something in her voice, desperation, maybe, or guilt, made me stay. I leaned back, arms crossed, and nodded for her to go on. Laura told me a story I wasn't ready for. My father, Tom Carter, hadn't just abandoned us. He'd been running from himself, from a past he never told Mom about. He'd been a small-time crook in his youth, mixed up with the kind of people who don't let you walk away clean. When he met Mom, he saw a chance at redemption, a life where he could be more than his mistakes. But the past caught up. A deal went south. Threats were made, and he left to protect us. Or so he thought. He'd spent years bouncing between cities, always looking over his shoulder, until he met Laura 5 years ago. She was a nurse, steady and kind, and somehow she'd seen something worth saving in him. "He never stopped thinking about you," Laura said, her voice breaking. "He wrote letters he never sent, kept tabs on you from afar. He knew about your high school graduation, your art classes, the diner. He was too ashamed to reach out, too afraid he'd ruin your life again." I wanted to call it a lie, to scream that he'd had his chance and blown it. But the envelope in her hand felt like a grenade, and I couldn't look away. She slid it across the table, and I opened it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Inside was a letter, scrawled in uneven handwriting, and a photo of me at 6. The one Mom said he'd taken the day he left. My pigtails, my gap-toothed smile, frozen in time. The letter was short but heavy. He apologized, not with excuses, but with raw, messy honesty. He wrote about the guilt that ate at him, the nights he drank to forget, the years he spent hating himself for leaving me. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He said he didn't deserve it, but he begged for a chance to see me, to say goodbye before the cancer took him. I shoved the letter back in the envelope, my throat tight. Why now? Why not 10 years ago or 5? Why wait until he's dying? Laura's eyes softened, but there was steel in them too. Because I forced him to. I found the letters, the photos, all of it. I told him he couldn't leave this world without trying to make it right. I tracked you down because he wouldn't. He's too weak now, Ellie, but he's still your father. The diner felt too small, the air too thick. I stood pacing, my mind a storm of anger and grief and something else I couldn't name. You don't get it, I said. He left me. He left Mom. She worked double shifts until her heart gave out at 42. I was 16. Laura, 16, and alone because of him. Laura's face crumpled, but she didn't look away. I know, and he knows. He's carried that every day. But you deserve to hear it from him, to decide for yourself if he's worth a moment of your time. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to hate him. But the truth was, I'd spent 20 years wondering why I wasn't enough for him to stay. Now, here was this woman, a stranger, telling me he'd loved me all along, in his broken, cowardly way. It didn't fix the past, but it cracked open something in me I'd locked away. The next day I drove to the hospital. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my stomach churning with every mile. I didn't know what I'd say, didn't know if I'd forgive him or scream at him or just walk away. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret, and when I saw him, I almost didn't recognize him. Tom Carter, once tall and broad, was now a frail shadow in a hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arms, his eyes sunken but bright when they landed on me. "Ellie," he whispered, and the sound of my name in his voice broke something inside me. We talked for hours. He didn't sugarcoat his choices, didn't hide from the pain he'd caused. He told me about the threats that drove him away, the fear that kept him gone, the shame that stopped him from coming back. He told me he'd watched my art show from the back of the gallery when I was 18, too afraid to approach me. He cried when he talked about Mom, about how he'd loved her and failed her. I cried too, though I hated myself for it. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just needed you to know I never stopped loving you. Not for a day." I didn't forgive him, not fully, but I stayed. I held his hand as he drifted in and out of sleep, as the machines beeped and the hours slipped away. Laura was there too, quiet but present, her own grief a shadow in the room. When he took his last breath 2 days later, I was there, and so was she. We didn't speak, but we understood each other in a way I hadn't expected. In the weeks that followed, I wrestled with what it all meant. The anger was still there, but it was softer now, tangled with a strange kind of peace. I'd spent so long defining myself by his absence, but now I had his story, his regrets, his love. Flawed as it was, it didn't erase the past, but it gave me a choice to carry the hurt or to let it go. Laura and I stayed in touch. She sent me his old sketchbooks, filled with drawings of me as a child, of Mom, of a life he'd dreamed of but never lived. They were beautiful and painful, and I kept them on my shelf, a reminder that people are messy, that love can be both a gift and a wound. Life went on. I kept working at the diner, kept painting, kept trying to figure out who I was beyond the girl whose father left. But something had shifted. I wasn't just the abandoned kid anymore. I was someone who'd faced the past, who'd chosen to listen, to feel, to let the truth breathe. What would you do if you were me? Would you have gone to that hospital bed, given him those final hours, or would you have walked away? Let the past stay buried. Share your thoughts. Where does justice lie when it comes to forgiveness, family, and second chances?